How's the health of your brain? Do you have some habits that may be causing it harm? In today's video, I'm going to share 7 not-so-healthy habits that we can change to improve our brain health. Our brains are the supercomputers of our lives. As Dr. Boster says, they are the holiest of the holies. It's one of the most important organs in our bodies. When we live with MS, our brains and their function are at risk. Our immune systems attack the protective coatings on the nerves in our brain and spinal column. Not only that, but our brains shrink faster than the general population. Some studies say it shrinks several times faster than people of similar age. How rude! But don't fret though, there are things that we can do in our control that can help. Chronic inflammation is a driver of many diseases, and it can have a big effect on our brain health. MS is an inflammatory disease, and while inflammation can be a good thing if we have injury or infection, chronic inflammation is definitely not a good thing. Many of the things that we do in modern life may drive chronic inflammation. Here are 7 habits in no particular order that may contribute to decreased brain health that we can change to help our brain. Oh, before we jump in, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks. One of the bad habits is overeating. We're at a point in our history where we've never been as overweight as we are now. As our waistlines increase, our brain sizes decrease, and we're seeing more negative effects on the brain. In this review, they share that obesity is associated with low-grade inflammatory state and has been linked to neurodegenerative diseases like multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. It goes on to say that it leads to inflammation, insulin and leptin resistance, blood-brain barrier disruption, altered brain metabolism, neuronal inflammation, brain atrophy, and cognitive decline. Well, okay then. This is a habit we definitely should try to alter. But it's not easy, though. The standard American diet, or the Western diet, is full of foods and food-like products that are designed to encourage overeating. I have 2 tips to help with this. One is to try to eat more whole, real foods. Getting away from packaged and highly processed foods will help. And try to remember this: if it's grown on a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, don't. The second tip is to pay attention when we eat. Stop and pay attention to each bite, without the phone or the TV or the computer. When we eat more mindfully, we tend to eat less and reduce the chances of becoming overweight. Next is getting insufficient nutrients. This seems like the flip side of overeating, but it isn't really. We can overeat and still be nutrient deficient. Many foods that we're consuming are highly processed and contain ingredients like white flour and white sugar and have very little nutrients. They've had their nutrients stripped away. When we eat a lot of highly processed foods, we're filling up on nutrient-deficient calories. Many Americans are not reaching micronutrient intake requirements from food alone, presumably due to eating an energy-rich and nutrient-poor diet. About 75% of the U.S. population do not consume the recommended intake of fruit, and more than 80% do not consume the recommended intake of vegetables. Seriously, people, we need to up our fruit and vegetable game. One of my favorite books on having a healthy gut is Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, and I'll link it below. He recommends eating 30 different kinds of plants a week. This is a great way to increase our nutrient intake. I know, it seems like a lot, but if you break it down, it really isn't. We typically eat 3 meals a day, so that's 21 meals a week. That's less than 2 unique plants per meal. And this includes all plants: fruits, vegetables, grain, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Next is neurotoxin exposure. We're all surrounded by toxins in the environment, and they can be natural or man-made. Neurotoxins can cause damage to our nerves and to our brains. They can interfere with mitochondrial function, increase oxidative stress, and can result in inflammation. This can lead to neurological symptoms, and the last thing we need is more neurological symptoms, am I right? Some ways to limit our exposure to these neurotoxins are: make sure we're drinking filtered or clean water. Avoid phthalates by ensuring our nonstick pots and pans do not contain them. If we're using plastics, look for ones that are BPA, cadmium, and phthalate free, and also look for non-BPA lined canned goods. Make sure our older jewelry does not contain lead. Be careful of lead if we live in older homes. Make sure our homes are dry and don't have mold. If you eat fish, opt for smaller fish that have less chance of contamination. And be careful of spices that may contain lead. Speaking of toxins, the next bad habit is smoking. Cigarette smoke is full of toxins and may cause inflammation that may damage our beautiful brains. Even secondhand smoke is dangerous. Studies show it is associated with increased brain lesion volumes and brain atrophy in multiple sclerosis. Our brains already shrink faster than the general population, and smoking may make them shrink even faster. And in an article I found out of Australia, they linked smoking to an increased risk of developing MS by up to 50% and increased disability progression by up to 55%. Yikes! If you're a smoker, please ask your doctors about programs that may be able to help you to quit smoking. I will also put some links in the description below to resources that can help you quit. Next on the list is chronic stress. A little stress can be a good thing. It can help us to avoid dangerous situations, but in today's world, we live with chronic stress. We live in a state of constant stress. When we're in a state of constant stress, our bodies are flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Long-term exposure to these may be harmful to our brains. Studies on the effects of chronic stress on the brain show that chronic exposure to stress is associated with reduced volume of the hippocampus, and that chronic stress can modulate the volumes of both the amygdala and frontal cortex, suggesting neurotoxic effects of stress hormones on the brain. Yeah, stress, it's no good. This is one of the harder habits to break. It can seem like stressful situations are out of our control. Some of the things that we can do to reduce stress are to practice mindfulness and meditation. I took a course on mindfulness-based stress reduction based on the teachings of Jon Kabat-Zinn, and it was amazing. I still practice mindfulness daily. We can also enlist the help of a therapist. I started seeing mine shortly after diagnosis, and she helps in all areas of my life. Getting out in nature can help too. The therapeutic effects of forest bathing can be really helpful. I'll put a link above and in the description below to a video I did about forest bathing that you can watch after this one. The next habit that may be harming our brains is physical stagnation. Physical what, Vickie? Stagnation, a lack of movement. Our bodies are designed to move. Think about the last time you got a good sweat session on or had a good workout. How did you feel emotionally after? Did you feel good? Yeah, the feel-good hormones flow when we exercise. Our brains function best when we exercise regularly. The Mayo Clinic did a review looking at exercise and found some amazing things happen in our brains when we exercise. It concluded that aerobic exercise is associated with a reduced risk of cognitive impairment and dementia. Exercise may attenuate progression of neurodegenerative processes and age-related loss of synapses. It may facilitate neuroprotective, neurotropic factors and neuroplasticity. And ongoing moderate intensity physical exercise should be considered as a prescription for lowering cognitive risks and slowing cognitive decline. Well then, I guess we need to exercise more for brain health. What kind of exercise should we do? The one that we like. If we don't like an exercise, we won't do it. I encourage you to find the type of exercise that you like to do and then do that. It could be swimming or yoga, walking or dancing or sports. Keep trying until you find the one that you like. Or better yet, find several that you like. I walk the dog almost daily. I do yoga, I do Zumba, I do some light weights, and I find that doing a variety of different exercises works for me. What kinds of exercise do you like? Let me know in the comments below. The last bad habit that I have for you today that can hurt your brain is the lack of sleep. Our brains need sleep to function. When we don't sleep, we can't form or maintain the pathways in our brain that let us learn and create new memories. And it's harder to concentrate and respond quickly. It's also important to how nerve cells and neurons communicate with each other. And sleep plays a housekeeping role that removes toxins in our brain that build up while we're awake. When we sleep, our brains clean out the cobwebs, help with learning and with memory. How much sleep do we need? 7 to 8 hours a night for the average person. Some tips to help us sleep are have a consistent bedtime, keep our rooms dark, cool, and screen-free. It turns out there are some habits that we can change that may have a profoundly good effect on our brain health. Are there some habits on this list that you can change? Or are there some habits that you've already changed? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me today. As always, I will provide links in the description to all the studies and the articles that I referenced today. To see more on healthy habits to help with MS or chronic illness, watch these videos next. Please like, subscribe, and subscribe to my newsletter using the link below. Until next time, be well.